annual symposium, Designing for Resilience. I'm Audrey Sato, your AWA+D president. For almost 100 years, AWA+D has been committed to the career advancement of women in architecture and the allied fields. I'm so proud to be part of this continuing legacy and to work with you toward further change. This year's symposium is organized into a 6-part virtual series. We kicked things off last week with Barbara Flameng and Taryn Bone, who shared inspiring stories proving that resilience takes both toughness and elasticity. Today's topic, balancing work, life, identity, and passions, continues the theme of personal resilience, featuring speakers Carissa, Shrock, Oyedele, and Sara, Abed. Next week, we will transition to the topic of community resilience, so please stay tuned. At the end of tonight's session, we will have an exciting drawing for a $50 gift card to Honey's Kettle, a local minority family-owned restaurant. And for those of you who attend 4 or more sessions, we'll raffle a gorgeous necklace by Fold, a jewelry company founded by local architect and AWA+D board member Terry Moore. Before we begin, please note that we're recording these sessions in speaker mode, and we will make this content publicly available in the future. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our annual sponsors, Louis Polson, Atomic Irrigation, Shimahara Visual, and Trajan Photography. Also, thank you to our symposium committee for putting this event together. Meg Coffey, Sara Garina, Alejandra Ramirez, Marisa Kurtzman, Pam Leone, and Stephanie Reich. Stephanie will now introduce our esteemed speakers.
Thank you, Audrey, and thank you to the AWA+D board for giving me this great honor of introducing the speakers. Tonight we have 2 young and very hip people to tell us all kinds of things from their variety of experiences. Carissa Shrock Oyedele is an architect and associate principal at Moore Rubu Udell Architects and Planners. She spent her career there so far after receiving a bachelor degree in architecture with a minor in construction management from Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, which provides a solid background for solving creative design solutions to various project types. She's been working on embassies and educational facilities, and she's now one of the leaders in the educational facilities for Moore Rubu Udell. She's also recognized as a young leader in architecture and has helped founded the Women in Architecture Committee for the AIA and has helped to plan the powerful symposium every year, which I'm personally grateful for. Sara Abed is a landscape designer and activist who aims to improve cultural, social, and environmental conditions in complex landscape systems. She's often in pursuit of helping people in different communities, passionate about using design to help communities thrive. In 2016, she directed a co-farm project that connected locals with refugees resettling in Orange County. She also has a strong interest in civic engagement and is currently an active member of the OC Environmental Justice, a nonprofit organization that fights for environmental justice in Orange County through advocacy, public accountability, healing, and systemic transformation. We can learn a lot from both of you, so thank you so very much for being here. I'm going to hand it over to Carissa first to present to us, so thank you so much.
Sure, thank you. Let me get my screen sharing. One moment, please. Can everybody see? So thank you all for having me today. I'm happy to be here and share with you a little bit about my personal resilience, about balancing work, what I call work-life integration with a toddler. And as Stephanie mentioned, my name is Carissa Shrock Oyedele. I'm associate principal with Moore Rubu Udell. But who am I as a person? I identify myself first as a female, and have obviously since I was born. And then next, I began identifying myself as an architect when I started going to architecture school at Cal Poly. And then I became a licensed architect in 2008. And most recently, I identified myself as a wife and a mom. So really, the core of me is all three of these things, and they make up who I am as Carissa. One of the first things I realized when I became a mom is that I don't really consider it work-life balance so much as work-life integration. Being an architect and being a mom are both extremely demanding full-time jobs that really need to carefully be integrated together so that they work cohesively. So I am a mom when I'm at work, and I'm also an architect when I'm at home with my family. So I have started to approach work-life integration similar to managing a project. So I'm going to look into the U.S. Embassy of The Hague, which is my most recent completed project from beginning all the way through construction. And being such a complicated project, to make it work successfully, obviously you need to understand the schedule, the budget, the scope, client expectations, and really have all these parts and pieces, all these cogs, if you will, work together collectively for the success of the project. Similarly, if I look at my baby boy as a project, it's really important to also manage the schedule, the budget, the scope, family expectations, and all these parts and pieces to make sure that they work together for the successful raising of my son. Now, in looking back over the past few years, I realized this really interesting parallel between my work life and my personal life, that as the start of this U.S. Embassy in The Hague project began, and we were in early planning and concept design, figuring out what this project was to be and understanding the project scope and budget, I met my husband, Akin. As the project advanced through schematic design, design development, and construction documents, the project, obviously, we're learning more about the project, understanding materials, how they're coming together, what the project is starting to look like. That's when parallel, my personal life really started to develop and come together as well. That's when I fell in love with my husband and we got married in Jamaica. Then as the project moves through construction and gets a bit more challenging, we're working through construction details, some of the construction issues on site. I was actually working on construction administration remotely in Santa Monica, so that was kind of interesting process there, this being in The Hague. So too was I at the same time working on my other baby. So this image on the left is actually a 10-foot diameter US seal that was being installed on the building at the main, on the main southern facade. And the 10-foot diameter seal is not to be confused with my almost 38-week belly on the right side. And this moment of work-life balance, work integration really came to a head at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, when the project U.S. Embassy in The Hague opened. There was a ribbon cutting early 2018, and my son was born in late 2017. And unfortunately, I was unable to go to the project opening, the ribbon cutting, because I was at home on maternity leave. But it was kind of an incredible moment of transition in my life. And now I can say that I'm a proud mom of both of my babies. On the left, the completed embassy project with the seal up on the facade, and then my son Caden on the right, and he's 2.5 now, and he actually is wearing on his shirt, he has the Embassy of The Hague seal on his shirt as well. So work-life integration could not be any more real than at this moment now in the pandemic, working from home, and really having to integrate it, really truthfully having to integrate both. And I do have to admit, the first couple of weeks when it was kind of thrown on me, I did ask myself, is this WFH or WTF? Like, how am I expected to, at the same time, be a full-time mom and a full-time architect at the same time? I've never had to do that. I've had compartmentalized work-life integration, but I had to figure out a way to do this both at once, which, needless to say, is very challenging. It took us a few weeks to get into the routine. So I really felt like, you know, I was literally doing a million things at once. I had to cook lunch, take a Zoom call, make myself coffee, you know, do all these things literally at the same time. And, you know, thank goodness you don't always have to be on camera on Zoom. So people didn't always know what was going on around in the background. But I really have been figuring out to make the most of this time. And I figured out a way to be productive and have my assistant here on the iPad helping me at the kitchen table, working through our Zoom calls together. And then, of course, taking our much needed superhero pasta breaks, which are extremely important. And I've been really excited and fortunate to be able to embrace this extra time that I've been able to have with my son while we're both working from home. We have, throughout all of this, had to make sure that the work-life integration really is, although integrated, it still is separated to some extent, and having priorities, keeping priorities straight, and really being present in the moment. So we've, as a family, really made sure that we close the Zoom calls and put things away at certain times so we can go on daily walks, or we try to do daily walks, go to the beach and get outside and get some fresh air when we can. So I do have to say, I don't have all the answers. I am one that's figuring out and learning on my own. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to some of the things I'm saying, being career parents, but those of you who aren't, I'm sure you have your own various work-life integration challenges. For me, I've really kind of hold to these 6 strategies for balancing it all, and really making sure that, again, keeping priorities straight. So it's not only about time management, but sleep management, making sure that not only me, but the whole family, everybody's getting proper sleep so we can think straight and function properly. Having stress management, taking time to relax, decompress really on a daily basis, so that we can manage that portion of our life. Making sure that health management, making sure we all have time to do exercise and eat properly, as that's so important, we know, to every other aspect of our lives. As I've mentioned, making sure to have focused priorities so that we're in the moment and able to give 100% or 110% of whatever we're doing at that exact moment. And then, of course, at this time, to stay safe, to be smart, and stay home, and when we go out, to be as safe as we can. So I just want to leave you all with this meme that I love so much, and maybe some of you can relate to that. I think career moms or career parents really do so many different things, but it's really perception. People kind of think that you do different things and think that you are or are not what you are. And in reality, I think what I do is hopefully not as disastrous as the bottom right picture, but really a little bit of everything. And so I think having a career that's as demanding as architecture in our field, and having personal commitments is definitely a challenge and will continue to be a challenge. But I think that we all can do the best that we can, and that's hopefully good enough. So thank you, and I will welcome any questions and additional thoughts and stories when the time comes.
Thank you, Carissa. And I think what you do is really closer to the middle bottom.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that with us. And Sara, if you're ready, it would be great to hear from you. You can unmute when you're ready. We can see your screen.
Okay, yeah, I got it now. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into my story. But in order to, you know, get into the gist of what I've been trying to do, I think it's important that I share my background. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. So people always ask me, you know, what's my background when they see my last name. So I'm a Syrian Mexican Muslim American. I'm a second generation in the family. My dad immigrated from Syria. My mom immigrated from Mexico. My parents met, I kid you not, while my dad was remodeling my mom's kitchen floor in Canoga Park. They fell in love, and then they moved to Reseda and started their family. So in the early 90s, there were just so many events that impacted LA County, right? Such as the recession, the LA riots, and the Northridge earthquake, which was close to where we lived. And during this time, my dad was struggling with his construction business. And with no recovery in sight, our family decided to move out of the country. We lived in the United Arab Emirates for half a year, and then later moved on to Virginia. Unfortunately, things didn't work out, so we decided to move back to California in the mid to late 90s. And life, you know, I thought was good again. But then on September 11th, 2001, my sisters and I were getting ready to start our school day, which we thought would be like any ordinary day. We got in our car, turned on the radio, and news broke out that a plane was hijacked by Al-Qaeda and it hit the Twin Towers. My country was in pain, and my faith was facing a backlash all over the world. Hate crimes against Muslims were on the rise, and I was afraid that justice in this country would be used against Muslim Americans like myself. Later that year, the Patriot Act was signed into law, violating our Fourth Amendment, and it was a challenging time for so many of us. In my teens, I started to get more involved in local and international politics. I attended many fundraisers and protests. I felt I had a responsibility to stand up against injustice and war crimes. These experiences definitely shaped my creative side. And after finishing high school, I wanted to pursue a career in architecture. I wanted to design resilient communities and create spaces that would be more accepting of people's differences. I studied architecture for just a few years and then later transitioned into landscape architecture. Then I got into Cal Poly Pomona and I majored in landscape architecture. And for me, college was such a safe space for me to speak up about injustice in our neighborhoods. And in my studios, I fought for food security in some of the toughest neighborhoods in LA. I stood up for workers' rights and services in the city of Vernon. And I designed safe spaces for people to protest and celebrate art in the downtown Los Angeles area. I wanted professors and professionals critiquing my work to realize that there is a need for these projects to take shape in our built environment. After I graduated, I began my career and was eager to spend some time to help newly resettled refugees, and I wanted them to feel welcomed and safe. It was then around this time that I started to work on a project to create a micro farm in Garden Grove. I simply wanted it to be a space where they would feel welcomed. When Trump was running for president, I feared for the safety and well-being of so many asylum seekers. And I knew that if Trump got elected, America's values would be challenged and pushed to the edge. And I was afraid that in some regards, history would repeat itself. After Trump's election, I protested at the Women's March, and I was proud to be out in the streets in Orange County, denouncing the presidency of Donald Trump as an unapologetic Muslim. But protesting simply wasn't enough for me, and I wanted to do more for my community. So as luck would have it, a friend of mine in the Arab community told me about an upcoming election in the California Democratic Party. I ran against former Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez and other Democrats residing in my district. I knew that it would be important to run, and if elected, to represent the values and issues that so many minorities are challenged with today. My fellow Democrats, I said, I'm running as a progressive delegate because I simply want to address the need for social justice and environmental justice in our district. I want rights for immigrants, I want affordable health care, and I want a debt-free higher education. As luck would have it, on January 2016, I was elected as delegate along with 13 others in California's 68th Assembly District, which encompasses Orange, Santa Ana, parts of Lake Forest, and parts of Irvine, and Anaheim. So I went to the state convention and I attended board meetings, resolution and caucus meetings. And it was my duty as a delegate to endorse candidates running for office at the state level for the annual state convention for a period of about 3 years. A few months later, after my election, I was nominated and elected to become treasurer for the Arab American Caucus, which I served for about 2 years. And then after my term in the California Democrat Party was over, I decided that it was high time I start working in a planning firm with hopes that I'd learn about public policy. And while continuing on my career path, I sought out opportunities to help out students. I was so eager to introduce them to the world of community organizing and local politics. I understood then that even if you hate politics, it ultimately impacts where we live, work, and how we do things in the planning and landscape architecture industry. And I wanted to narrate this so much with the up and coming generation. Then while I was working at Placeworks, a planning firm, I got involved with a nonprofit called the Great Park Garden Coalition. And so my coworker at the time needed some help doing some site design concepts and sharing of ideas for the future botanical garden at the OC Great Park for city officials in Irvine. And in an effort to get more attention on this project, I spoke about the botanical garden with my colleagues in the field. Then my professor, Andy Wilcox, back at Cal Poly, saw the project as an opportunity for students to generate more ideas that would eventually be presented to the city of Irvine. With approval from the city and the Great Park Garden Coalition, the second-year undergrad students took on the task of designing a 40-acre botanical garden in Orange County. And I must say, they did an amazing job. As I reflect on my experiences, I understand now more than ever that my knowledge in landscape architecture can aid disadvantaged communities. Right now, I volunteer with a nonprofit called OC Environmental Justice. I'm working with our Santa Ana members to discuss SB 1000, which introduces an environmental justice element into the updated general plan and how it impacts updates. We are now strategizing and creating our own environmental justice policy platform, which will soon be made public and shared with city council members in Santa Ana. My goal in this profession is simply this: to heal communities that struggle. Too many people, and often too many times, are hurting from a system that scars their dignity and destroys their quality of life. Environmental and social justice can no longer be a side practice of landscape architecture. Now more than ever, designers have a responsibility to correct decades of inequities. We must practice empathy and lead with love and compassion for the communities that we are designing for. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Carissa. Your presentations were just really inspiring, and I want to start the discussion really talking about how we're people with clear identities of who we are, and sometimes our identities shift, or there's pieces of us that maybe shift in balance at different points in our life or in different points in our career, and sometimes we develop new facets of ourselves as well. I want to talk with you both about how you find your confidence and your voice to really bring who you authentically are into your work and your career and find acceptance of who you are.
Sure, I can start. I think a lot of it has to do with how I was raised. And, you know, I've always been raised to be a strong woman with a confident voice, and followed after my mom's footsteps. So I think it's just always been a part of me, and knowing who I am and who I want to be, and making sure that I convey that sense of reality to other people, and not try to put on a front or to be somebody different. And I think that that's really important. And I think that this community does a great job in helping us women support women, support each other, and to boost each other. I think it could be very natural for us to be competitive and, you know, kind of fight or put down each other to for personal gain. But I think being a part of groups like this, and, you know, there's lots of other, you know, minority or women or whatever group or organization that you identify with, I think it's really important to find those communities and find those groups that will help you build your confidence and help you to shine and be who you be the best of who you are, and not try to be competitive. So I think, you know, a lot comes down to AWA+D and other organizations that are great like this.
So yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in. I definitely think, you know, it's so important, right, to believe in yourself. And I know sometimes, like, I can falter at that. But I try to remind myself to just always, no matter like where I go, whether, you know, any firm, or just, you know, out in public, you know, in my schools, to always stay true to my values. I've been taught that, like, at a very young age. And then I've also, you know, had it echoed, like, you know, in my studio classes. And so that has always, I felt, shined the light, like, as I face so many challenges along the way. And yeah, so that would be my simple answer.
It looks like we have some questions from the audience, and just a reminder, we're recording in speaker view, so feel free to raise your hand to participate, but you will be recorded. And if you aren't comfortable with that, you can type your question in the chat, and Sara Garina will read your question for you.
So we do have a good question. Thank you, Marissa. It says, Sara and Carissa, thank you so much. Carissa, how does your office help support you / accomplish, or help support you to accomplish your dual role as a firm leader and as a wife, mom? And then maybe what's missing, what could be better?
Sure. I have been really fortunate to have found a really great fit early in my career at Oyedele. The firm really does value people, value the staff, value the employees, value the culture, and value individuals. And I think that that's really important, because it starts with the leadership at the firm, the founders and the principals and the associate principals, about really making sure that the people they want to keep at the firm are happy, and you know, that the firm is able to support whatever, you know, within reason that people need. So I think for me, you know, obviously becoming a mom, there were a lot of shifts in or additional priorities and things. So I really just worked with the firm and the leadership into kind of asking what I needed, and making sure that I was, you know, staying committed to them. And so I think it really is about communication and support, and finding the right place. You know, I'm again lucky that I found Oyedele early in my career, because it's a good fit for me. But I think it's really important for everybody to make sure and be evaluating where they are to make sure that they are at a place that has a dual symbiotic relationship, that you both are benefiting from each other, and to making it work. And then as far as what's missing, I mean, I think the only thing the firm could do is give me more time. If I could have more time in the day, and I don't know, that's an impossible task, obviously, but I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is really trying to manage time, and especially with remote working, there's a lot more Zoom calls. I'm sure you guys are all finding a lot more meetings and commitments. So, it's figuring out, when can I have the time to get my work done, my quiet work done? When do I have the time for my family? And so I think really, again, comes down to communication and making sure that, I personally am not overloaded or overwhelmed or getting burnout, that it's really about making my work situation work for me and work for the firm, so that it's beneficial to everybody. Hopefully that helps answer the question a little bit.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. We have a question from Stephanie. She says, I'm so impressed by you both. Can you talk about how your parents encouraged you to express yourselves as strong women and to express your values? Yeah, any input there?
I'll go ahead and jump in. I feel like I need a good minute to really think about it, but it's okay, I'll jump in. Yeah, I mean, my parents, it's so interesting too, when you have, parents that are both, immigrants, and you see them working so hard to really hold on to that American dream, right? And trying to make it in this country. And I always felt my parents wanted to make sure that whatever it was that I chose to do, that it made me happy, right? It didn't matter what it was, and that they would, support me along the way. And I think I've been so blessed to have that support from them. And of course, in going through my path in my career and doing all the volunteer work, it can be difficult, and it has its share of challenges, but I've learned so much from things that I really wanted to work out and didn't work out, right? I had no idea that, I would run in local politics or do any of that. It was just having conversations with people led me to have one experience lead to another experience and another experience. And I think them teaching me to be open-minded and to just talk to people to find out what sort of opportunities are out there definitely helped me out. And helped me later on to find out what my passions were. So I would definitely say things were definitely messy in the beginning, it felt and nothing was making sense. But I truly feel especially now, everything's starting to come together, and I'm so thankful for all my experiences.
Thank you.
Sure, I can answer that question as well. Similarly, I think my parents have both really supported and encouraged me to do and be anything that I wanted to be. They helped, I think, give me lots of opportunities growing up, and being able to explore different avenues and different options. I knew early in my life, probably in middle of high school, that I wanted to become an architect. And so once we kind of all figured that out, then they were helping me research the right schools to go to, and helping to, figure out the right path, and encourage me to get licensed right after, shortly after graduation. So I think having the parent support has been critical. I think it's really important to my success. And I do have actually on the phone a couple of my second parents, and my second family is here, which is huge, So I think that the support group goes beyond just, your blood parents. It's really your community and your support. Kind of like my previous answer, I think it's really important to surround yourself around people who are positive and good influences on you, and not ones that, bring you down or challenge you or question you. So.
All right, thank you. questions are coming in, so thanks everybody, keep them coming. Meg Coffey adds, Sara, your volunteer work is admirable. Wondering how you balance the economics of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, I have a lot of free time, and that's, you know, simply because I got laid off from work. So I'm doing more of it now than I ever have done before. But even when I had my full-time job, I was, you know, very careful about how I would balance like all the volunteering. It was just like, as soon as like, you know, work finished, I continued the work with my doing volunteer work, you know, behind the screen, attending meetings. And I, you know, have been, you know, financially just like blessed and like doing fine with all of that. In the beginning, it was definitely very, very hard, like graduating from school and jumping into that, right? Because you're just starting. So I've been so blessed, you know, to be well connected with, we have what's called Lala. It's a landscape architects in Los Angeles. And I was so scared to do this, but I put out like, because I had it to, when I was going into politics, right? I had a trip that I needed to go make in Sacramento, and that costs money, right? There's a travel expense, the hotel expense, all of that, and I had to stay there for a few days. So I put out a GoFundMe page, and I kid you not, just within minutes, like people were just like donating, and like I got just enough to like take my trip and go. And I'm so, you know, thankful that like I have that support from my network. Because I was freaking out. I'm all like, I know what I'm doing is like, can be a little bit contentious, and not everyone's going to agree with my politics. But it worked out totally fine for me.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we have a question for Carissa. Please share one example of the support that MRY was able to provide you with to encourage you and other women or moms to get licensed.
Sure. So the firm is very much a supporter of people getting licensed, and I think in general, getting licensed as early as possible, because I think we all find that the longer you wait after school, the harder it is to get back into study mode. And, you know, there's also the rolling clock. And so if you wait too long, if you start and then you wait too long, then you have to start retaking tests. So there's a lot of these steps along the way that could stop people or stumble people. And so I think it's really about, you know, we have a support group, we have a you know, email dialogue group, we have the office supports a certain amount, if you're qualified, a certain amount of money each year to help with exams or study guides. The office, you know, when we're there physically in the office, they have guides available. And so there really is a mini group, mini network within the firm to help and encourage and support licensure. And again, I would encourage everybody to get licensed right away. I did as quickly as I could. I think it took 5 years after school. And I waited a little bit later to have a child, for better or for worse. In some ways, I was really focused on my career and really got a good jump start. And that was my approach that worked really well, because I was able to really dive into my career wholeheartedly. And then once it's kind of under cruise control, I can pause a little bit and have kids at the, you know, kid or two maybe, you know, at a time when it's more on cruise control. I think everybody has to kind of come up with their own approach and their own work plan. And you know, if your firm doesn't support, I think it's, you know, that maybe asking or communicating. Sometimes the leadership doesn't know what you need unless you ask for it. So I think if people are looking to get licensed and needing support, the worst thing people could say is, no, we can't give you money, or no, we don't have any resources for you, and you're in the same boat. But if they can offer and help in any way, I would also encourage other people to reach out to other networks. You know, there's lots of resources available at AIA and other organizations. Probably AWA+D has some networks and resources as well. So really about finding what those resources are, because there is a lot out there.
That's great. Okay. This is a question that Meg is bringing up, although she totally stole it from me because this was my question too. Sarah, any advice for people who have passions, political passions, civic passions, and want to get more involved, like how to find the organizations, the time, like any pointers for beginners, perhaps?
Well, I remember, okay, so when I graduated from Cal Poly Pomona, I knew more or less like what my interests were, right? It was community work. And I literally Googled, it was like landscape architects in politics. And then I got this person like show up that did like an interview through AWAF, and his name is Billy Fleming. He's in Pennsylvania, and he works at, I think it was the McHarg University over there. So I found out that he was an intern during Obama's administration. So he, got to do some work over there for just like a few years. And then I connected with him, and I had like, the conversation with him, like, how did you get there? Like, what was it that drove you to like, to get into like the world of politics, and what are you doing now? And then, that person, it was like, then I had like other conversations with other people, especially my Arab American community, because I wanted to get to know my community better. And then, telling them what I do, that I did landscape architecture. And then like, they would tell me about events that were like lining up like in the month, and then I would attend those. And it was just like simply like sharing everything, that I loved in the field, and then them like sort of like aligning like interests with me, and then introducing me that way into nonprofits. That's kind of how I got like involved into different nonprofits, is that it started with my Arab American community and my Muslim American community, and then it just segued, onto like going into like the arts, and then, the environmental justice thing. And so I navigated that way.
Okay, that's great. We have another question. It's from Marissa. What is your approach to mentorship, seeking it out and paying it forward, especially to other women? Yes, this is for both of you.
Okay. Well, my approach is simply just like dive right in. That's kind of how I've been. For me, I mean, I'll, speak with my experiences with Cal Poly, because they're my, alma mater. I always felt that I had this responsibility of like giving back, right? That you pay it back, you pay it forward. And I, because of like my involvement in doing community work, I had like faculty reach out to me to tell me of an opportunity where I could serve on the landscape architecture professional advisory board. And I did. So like, we resort things that are going on in the department, and things that are going on like in the profession, and how to, create that mentorship with students. And so I, also by sharing my stories of like what I've been doing in the community, I gave lectures. Again, I've been, talking to faculty members, and I just like would talk to students, like have those one-on-one conversations with them when I would give like student critiques, at the end of the years when they had, or end of the semesters when they had their projects wrapping up. And that was how I created that like one-on-one mentorship with the students. So I didn't wait for like people to tell me like what to do. I just like went and jumped in and did the work. And it's been like such a blessing just to like, see them grow in academia.
I too would say I'm a huge advocate and supporter of mentors, both organically and formally. I think that mentorship takes on a lot of different roles and different forms, and I personally like to mentor whoever wants to talk to me or wants support from me. I of course won't force it on anyone, but I definitely support and mentor folks within my office, within the local architecture community, within AIA. And I've been a huge advocate for mentorship down in the pipeline. So really getting involved with local junior high school and high school students. I think we can all go and go to career fairs. I think that's one place where they're always looking for all successful people, but especially successful women or minorities to come and be those faces to the young students, that they can see themselves. And especially, I think, elementary school and junior high students maybe don't really know about our fields, and maybe what architecture or engineering or landscape architecture, they may not know that these careers even exist. And so I think it's really important not only to be mentoring, our own local community, but to really try to pull our future and the pipeline, pull the pipeline forward, and really try to get at those kids and let them know that these amazing design and engineering fields are out there, and construction, and all of the related things, and really help guide them. So it's extremely important. I think we all need to do our share in that regard.
That's great. Yeah, thanks. It is a responsibility, you're saying, not just a privilege that we can go find men.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Carlos asks, to both speakers, what can professional organizations like the AIA, ASLA, or the AWA+D do to better support women in architecture and landscape architecture?
Okay, I'll go ahead and jump in. Thanks, Carlos, for asking that. I know him, so. Yeah, I definitely think, and when back when I was more involved with ASLA, I had talked about starting an emerging professionals group, and we did have meetings. Like in the beginning, we had some of us organized meetings in Orange County, and we would invite the students. And I thought that was helpful for the students, but I think the hard part was just trying to keep the ball rolling, right? Because sometimes, with life, right, just people get so busy, and it's hard for people to manage some of these extra things. But I think that's where right now, again, knowing that I got the time to do this, is I reach out to students, especially on social media, and they are asking me questions too, hey, I want to do this in landscape architecture, do you have any suggestions on how to go about it? If I don't know the answer, I'll connect them with somebody that does. So I think having that connection is definitely really important. So yeah, I would say also getting involved with ASLA, local the chapter members, and there's also nonprofit organizations like WXLA in landscape architecture, which is now starting to emerge, and it's helping women in the field just get connected with other women in the field, and working towards all the hardships that we face in the profession, which is good.
I would just like to add that organizations can really do their part by being advocates for women, and I would open that up to minorities as well, to women and minorities in the profession, so not only being advocates, but being aware. So when selecting board members, when selecting panelists, just really trying to make a solid effort to give the voice to the broad community, and making sure that the various people are represented, because again, I think it's really important for people to see the leaders in their firms and in their communities that look like them. I think that's the best way to really be a mentor and be a leader, is to represent people in your community. I would like to say that I'm on the AIA-LA board as a California representative, and have been for a few years now. And I do know that AIA does really make an effort. Even at the president level, I think for the past few years, they've really tried to have every other year be a woman president, and trying to have the board be 50% women and have, you know, as much of a diverse, culturally diverse board. And I think that really makes a difference, because at the board level, that's really where decisions are being made. And those are the people that tend to make the speaker selections and choose what articles get published, and, you know, what the voice of the community is. So I think our local LA chapters really try to do a good job at representing the community, but I think we need to help maybe some of the other chapters diversify as well, because I don't know that across the nation or at a national level, the diversity and the female voice is necessarily as vocal or as visual, you know, as you know, on the forefront of people's minds. So.
Yeah. Okay, Audrey, I think we have time for another, right? Are we?
Yeah, I would say that we probably have time for one last question, and then we will wrap it up and do our raffle so that we have time to get everybody, you know, wrap this up by 7:30 as we promised.
Yeah. Okay. This is a question. Does MRY or PlaceWorks have a formal mentorship program? And if so, what can you share that works well?
Well, back when I was at PlaceWorks, no, they didn't have a formal mentorship program. You know, but again, what was neat about, you know, working at PlaceWorks too is like, if you wanted to do something that was like very specific, you could just, because there were different like teams. We had an environmental planning team, then there was a planning team, and then a design team, which, you know, was the team that I was on, since landscape architecture is my background. And it was just like, you know, you could ask, and then they would, you know, if you wanted to try out doing some sort of environmental work, they would, you know, try plugging you in. Every Friday, like, you know, we would have a list of like, you know, projects that were like up and running and or coming up. And yeah, it was good for me to just like, you know, jump in and get to know like all the other like supervisors, and then just ask them questions. You know, that was very important. Always asking questions, they push for that. And then there were also opportunities too, like where, like at PlaceWorks, you know, we could do some, you know, volunteering with the team, and that was great too, which helped like build that mentorship, you know, relationship as well.
So at the moment, MRY doesn't have any formal mentorship. When I started, they did, and I was assigned a mentor, and I think we've been talking about reinstating it. I think it happens more organically now, where there are certain leaders that take roles or have certain expertise that are willing and open. You know, we have a very open office and open relationships. So I think that there are people that have made it very vocal that they are open and willing to be mentors, that they can come, people can approach them. I keep going back and forth about you know, whether or not we should reinstate something more formally, because sometimes they work, but I think they aren't always as successful because the pairing doesn't always work. I think Charlene is wanting to add something.
No, go ahead. Oh, but you're muted, Charlene.
You're muted. Yeah, you're muted.
Oh, still muted.
I got it. Okay.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
I'm at Oyedele with Carissa, and I know Stephanie and others. And I've been involved in doing in practice for a long time as part of the Cox Group and management consultants for AE firms, and I've been part of looking at mentorship programs and speaking about it over the years. And I think in the end, the most important part of a mentorship relationship is that you choose each other. And so I wouldn't, informal ones sometimes work. Sometimes we used to do it through the USC Guild. We did who wants to be mentors, and then who wanted to be, mentees. And but I wouldn't limit yourself. I mean, through my career, I have found mentors internal to my organization, outside of my organization, in client organizations. And you should find your mentors, and you should have quite a few of them over the course of your career. And what I find is kind of fun is later in my career, so I used to see Kate Diamond was a mentor of mine. And later Kate says to me, "Oh, well, you're my mentor too." And that you at different times in your career, you support each other and you learn from each other. So, I mean, for me, Carissa is the ultimate, because she lets what she wants known, and she'll seek out people. And in terms of finding her way in the firm, the whole firm knows that Carissa has certain hours she is not available, and they totally respect it during the day. And then for some reason, we'll find each other like at midnight, working. So I think the COVID-19 era has helped in certain ways in terms of firms understanding flexibility and understanding work from home, because those were really hard things. Telecommuting. I used to do a lot of search work, executive search, and placing people. And it was quite extraordinary that firms who were super open to flexibility and work-life balance, that they would, I would help sometimes connect them with someone who was not gonna, all I want to be able to do is to work from, telecommute 1 day a week or something. And and she was pregnant at the time with her second child, and she was a partner with the firm, but she said, they're never going to let me. They don't understand the concept of not being fully in the office. And so she ended up, it was funny because I was also pregnant with my second child at the time. And I was kind of going, okay, I get this. And they were, oh my God, we'll open an office near her home. She can work from home. She can, and that's kind of what I found in my own life. I had my 2 girls 20 years, in from working. So I had them later in life, after I had this intense professional career. And what I found was so interesting was people said, "Oh, you're planning to retire," and I thought, "No, no, I'm not. I just am trying to have kids." And they said, "Oh, okay, you can work from home. You can, it was extraordinary how accommodating people were when I was pregnant and looking for jobs. And I started new work at new places when I was pregnant with each of my girls. And I mean, they would send me information on what top 100 companies for working mothers, because I basically decided to be pretty open about it and say I'm pregnant. And it was, so the idea, I used to think I had to keep it totally separate, but it's actually part of who you are, whether it's your activism is part of your life, and whatever is important to you, I think can be integrated in with your professional life, and that it's part of you, and it's part of an asset of what makes you who you are. So I kind of like this idea that this is what's important to you, and you find the right fit professionally for clients that support it. If you have your own company, your clients have to support it. If you have you work for someone, they do. And you can, but I'm very certain you can find these things. And mentors, pick the ones you want, call them up. I mean, I used to speak to programs, and I would say, we all know each other now, and I'm part of your network. I taught a lot of pro practice classes at UCLA and USC, and I would say, because it was about marketing themselves and how to market your firm, and I said, it's about yourself too. You should, in every room you're in, if you connect to whoever's speaking, you reach out to them and you connect. And then you can always ask them, like, hey, like right now, you could say, hey, can we have a virtual drink? And, and then you have conversations. And it's all part of you all become each other's networks. And, and sometimes there's stronger connections with people. And but you find each other when you need each other. And, you know, I think you just keep pursuing what's important, and, you know, the path will find you. You will discover your path. There are firms that completely embrace it, and there are other firms that don't, and then they wonder why you're not there anymore. And eventually they'll embrace it. So.
Yeah, and I would love to segue the conversation here to make a plug for AWA+D, because I know I'm president, so I'm biased, but honestly, this has been the place where I've made relationships with the most mentors I've ever had in my life. And I think I completely agree with Carissa. When it is a two-way street, you cannot expect to get a lot of mentorship without giving in return. So that said, you know, I think if anyone wants to get involved and feels passionately about supporting women in architecture, landscape architecture, the design and allied fields, this is a place where we can do it and we can make change. You know, looking forward to our board makeup for the next year and talking about different kinds of programs we can implement. We're such a member-driven organization and we're so nimble. For example, a few years ago, someone came up with the idea of a study resource library to help people, to help members get resources for studying for licensure. And we made that happen. It's free for members, and we ship books to you and you ship them back and you just pay for shipping. I think, you know, things like this where someone has an idea and we figure out how to implement it, it's a small change that we can make, but we can impact, you know, we really do impact each other's lives. So I just really passionately give a plug for our organization and for becoming involved. So thank you, Carissa, thank you, Sara, so much for sharing both of your stories and insight today. We really appreciate it and have learned so much, and I'm sure a lot of people will reach out to connect with you after hearing your stories. At this time, Sara will draw the winner of our raffle for Honey's Kettle.
Yes, okay. So again, like I said last week, this is a scientific method I have. Scientific-ish. I took a screenshot of everybody that was here halfway through, and then I went to Google and drew a random number because they have a random number generator. And I counted down that many numbers and I came up with Reyes. And I saw Reyes's number, a name here. I don't know the rest of your name. R-A-Y-A-S. Hi. You're here, you're muted, and your video is off, but and I don't have any access to your email address. So I'd love if you could send me a message with your email address, and you're the big winner. This is Honey's Kettle, as Audrey said, is a minority-owned family business in Los Angeles. We, for all all of our AWA+D presentations, we are we are giving away a $50 gift certificate to minority and Black-owned, mostly women-owned businesses in Los Angeles. And we are so pleased that you're here. And so we wanted to make sure we rewarded you. And as a reminder, Audrey said it earlier, if you are at 4 of the 6 total events this summer for the Symposium series, you're in the running for this amazing necklace. You can see it all over Instagram. We post it all the time. So please stay tuned. We once again meet again tomorrow. I'm sorry, next week, tomorrow. We once again meet next Tuesday. And our next theme is community resilience. And we have some incredible experts to speak on community resilience for the next 2 weeks in a row. So please join us. And thank you very much for being here. And if you don't mind, and we didn't do this last week, but I would love to go off mute and clap for our amazing speakers. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. I really appreciate being able to be here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Have a good week.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.